All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Lal, and we're going to begin with our Fulton State Expedited Accusation Calendar. This is a list of misdemeanor cases in which individuals were recently arrested and brought to the Fulton County Jail. Soon after that, the Solicitor General's office has formally accused the defendant of one or more misdemeanor offenses. So this would be the defendant's initial appearance before a judicial officer with the state court of Fulton County. When I call your case, I will let you know what is your new accusation number, what are the charges brought against you, appoint counsel to represent you if needed, and set a bond where appropriate. And also, some of you may get a court date. The next court date for cases that apply would be November 10th, 2022 at 9 a.m. in courtroom G33 at 160 Pryor Street in Atlanta, Georgia. If you are a defendant charged with one or more misdemeanor offenses, please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say about the facts of your case, the statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to represent you. I will not repeat these rights, but if you have any questions about your rights when I call your case, please feel free to ask me. Okay, we're going to begin with courtroom 3. Who do we have?
Position number 5.
Right. This is Maria Cecilia Foreman. Ms. Foreman, don't mean to be disrespectful, but do you speak and understand English?
Yes.
Good. Ms. Foreman, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is going to be Ms. Wanda Gant. Mr. Tucson, this is Ms. Foreman. Any recommendation or her GCIC?
So fourth arrest, last was 2021. Possession of a Schedule 1 controlled substance, heroin. That's open. Case number 21 CP 203050. 2019 misdemeanor obstruction arrest. And before that was an 04 arrest. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Falk, any recommendation with regards to this case?
Yes, Your Honor. The state's recommendation is a $2,000 surety bond. No further contact with Ms. Carmen Ellis, CARMEN, Ellis, ELLIS, and stay away from 195 Sourwood Trail, Roswell. This incident, as you know, involved the defendant pushing Miss Ellis, which is her daughter, and it was recorded on Miss Ellis's cell phone. And that is all for the state. We are also, asking for no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. I may have already said that, and 1-day anger awareness. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gant?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Ms. Maria Foreman is 42 years old. She has been in the Atlanta, Georgia area her entire life. She has 2 children, her daughter, Ms. Carmen Ellis, the complaining witness. She also has an 11-year-old son. She completed high school and has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. She is currently employed with a moving company. Your Honor, she denies the allegations. She states that she merely was removing her daughter from her from in front of her. She states her daughter is the person who actually stepped in front of her, Your Honor. I did not hear about any violent convictions, Your Honor. Therefore, I'm requesting a signature bond on Ms. Foreman's behalf. I have been in contact with her daughter, Ms. Carmen Ellis. She wants contact with her daughter, as does my client. And Ms. Foreman also informed me that she is that is her residence. Her name is in fact on the deed, where she takes care of her son, and her elderly parents also live there. Therefore, Your Honor, we are opposed to any no contact and stay away orders. We would ask instead for a no violent contact order. And I did invite Ms. Ellis to the hearing today, but she informed me that she did not want to participate in the hearing, but that she does in fact want contact with her mother, Your Honor. Thank you.
Bond set at $3,500. It's going to be a signature bond for pretrial services. No further violent contact with Carmen Ellis. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. If there are any weapons or firearms in the home, they must be removed and surrendered to the authorities. Ms. Foreman, you do have an open felony case. You were previously convicted of disorderly conduct in 2019. under the present circumstances, and given that this is a domestic violence situation, I'm going to require you to do 12 weeks of anger management classes at your expense. You will begin those classes within 30 days of being released and placed on pretrial supervision. You will report to pretrial at your second visit that you have enrolled in a qualified anger management school and that you are attending weekly classes and paying for them out of your own pocket. It is a condition of your signature bond that you can attend and complete these 12-week anger management classes. Yeah, it will be paid by Ms. Foreman, not by pretrial. And your next court date will be sent to you at your current address where you reside with Ms. Ellis and your son. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge, that's per judge.
Yes, per judge.
Quick question. Judge.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is it Bogle?
real
Yeah.
quick. Okay. Position number 3 doesn't have representation today, so what are we gonna do with her?
Position number 3 does not have representation. Kate?
Your Honor, it's a conflict case and one has not been assigned.
All right. Where is Mr. Cade or Miss Cade?
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Do we have anyone from conflict on the Zoom? All right. Miss Amira Cade, you are accused of battery, domestic violence from October 26, 2022, which is yesterday. The state has 3 days or 72 hours to make sure that an initial appearance is completed within 72 hours of your arrest. I'm going to reset your case till tomorrow.
Your Honor,
Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting. The state's recommendation is going to be a signature bond through pretrial. So I don't know if you want to advise the defendant that she does have the right to waive her attorney and go ahead and receive that pretrial bond if the court is agreeable to it.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Let me just pull up her case. Thank you. All right, Miss Amira Janae Cade. We need to unmute the screen. Okay, first of all, you have a right to remain silent. Do not say anything about the facts of the case, otherwise your statements can and will be used against you by the prosecution. Second of all, you have a right to an attorney. Right now, if you want a public defense attorney, we would need to appoint a conflict attorney, and that person would need to come tomorrow. So I'll be glad to reset your case for you to confer with an attorney. In the meantime, the prosecutor has agreed to what they call a release order. In other words, you don't have to pay for your bond, but I'm going to impose certain conditions to make sure that you comply with the conditions of the bond. So at this juncture, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Do you want to wait till tomorrow for an attorney, or would you like to be released today and comply with the conditions of your bond and then make your own effort to retain counsel? All right.
And Your Honor, I can put the recommendation on the record if I may.
Yes, you go ahead.
State's recommendation on this case is a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial services. Stay away from 1314 Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway. No further contact with Crystal Smith, a one-time law enforcement escort to retrieve belongings. 1-day anger awareness, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. We have had an opportunity to speak with the victim. She stated that they are cousins. She was allowing the defendant to live with her, and the defendant had been staying with Miss Smith for about a month when they got into this altercation, which was an argument about food that resulted in the defendant scratching Miss Smith and causing scratches to her neck, right knee, and right side of her face. Ms. Smith has also further stated she is planning to file for an eviction, but in the meantime, she wants no contact for the defendant to stay away from her residence and a one-time law enforcement escort.
Ms. Cade, you understand that if I accept this recommendation, you cannot return to the home where you share with your roommate. You would have to find an alternative address and you need to update the court with your new address within 30 days of being released. Do you want to waive your right to counsel at the present time and then hire your own attorney or interview with the public defender's office down the road?
Institute.
You need to repeat your response.
Can you repeat?
You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one can be appointed to represent you, and that would be tomorrow. With an attorney, you can confer and discuss your legal options, understand your current predicament, and also understand what kind of bond you can receive, what kind of conditions you can argue for. At the present time, since an attorney is not present, as I've indicated, we can either reset it tomorrow or for you to bond out today, and then you make the effort to either hire your own attorney or interview with the public defender's office to see if you qualify for a conflict defense.
I'm going out today.
Okay, now, so you're going to waive your right to counsel at initial appearance. That's the first thing I want to note on the bond order. The next thing is I'm going to grant the $3,000 signature bond through pretrial services. Your next court date will be sent to you at the address that you provide us within 30 days of being released. Understood?
Yes.
You are to have no contact with Crystal Smith. You're to stay away from 1314 Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway in Atlanta, Georgia. You're not to communicate with Ms. Smith in person, through a third party, through a computer, through a cell phone, or through social media. Do you understand?
Yes.
You can go back to the location one time only with a police officer to remove your personal belongings. You're not to consume any illegal drugs, no alcohol, and you're not to possess any weapons or any firearms. You report to pretrial every month, and you will complete a one-day anger awareness program with pretrial services. Understood?
Yes.
Within 30 days of being released, you must make sure you come back down to the courthouse at 160 Prior Street to the clerk's division and give us your new mailing address, your new current address. Notices will be sent to that address as to when to come back to court. If we don't get your address within 30 days and we don't have a current address, any failure to appear on your part will result in an immediate bench warrant for your arrest and a revocation of your signature bond. Another constructive thing to do while you're out on bond is to make an appointment with the public defender's office to see if you financially qualify for public defense. If you do, then a conflict defense attorney must be appointed for you by the clerk's office. Understood?
Mhm.
If you don't want public defense or if you don't qualify, then make sure you hire an attorney to represent you. If you want to evict Ms. Smith from your home, you would need to speak to an attorney on how to file a dispossessory action without violating your no further contact condition. Thank you. That concludes your case.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. This is the South Annex. Before you is position number 9, Ms. Parrish.
Ms. Sean Parrish, her case is 22 CR 0073788H. She's been accused of battery, domestic violence, and 3 counts of cruelty in the 3rd degree. Case for an incident from October 25th, 2022. Ms. Parrish, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is, have you spoken to one of the public defense attorney, Ms. Whitfield?
That's, yes, good
Okay.
afternoon, Your Honor. I apologize. That's me, Your Honor. I was on the
Ms.
line
Ms.
with jail.
Whitfield, yeah, I have just signed an order transferring the case to the Superior Court District Attorney's Office. This case has been accepted as a felony matter. So Ms. Parrish, you will have an initial appearance before the magistrate judge sitting by designation for Superior Court. You will be appointed a public defense attorney at that time. Thank you. Deputy Milton, that concludes this case. Bond will be set by the magistrate judge addressing it at felony first appearance.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Courtroom 2.
Yes, position 10, Mr. Payton.
George Payton is case 22 CR 007379J, accused of simple battery and theft by taking from November 1st, 2020. Mr. Payton, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Whitfield. Any priors, Mr. Tucson?
The fourth arrest. Last arrest was, hold on. Last arrest was on the 6th of this month, probation violation out of Cobb County. He's on probation in Cobb for aggravated assault. Last year in April, they gave him 10 years probation for that. Came off of 2019. In 2014, I guess he was cited in the U.S. Army for wrongful use of marijuana. That's all.
All right, thank you. Ms. Falk, what's your recommendation for Mr. Payton?
Yes, Your Honor. The state's recommendation is a $5,000 surety bond. That is largely due to that 2021 aggravated assault strangulation for which he's currently on probation that occurred in 2019. It did not involve the defendant, but it did involve another woman by the name of Jacia Smith. This incident involved the defendant taking Miss Polly's keys by kneeling on her back and pressing her phone by kneeling on her back and pressing her to the ground. We did receive the police report that also indicates that at that time, Miss Polly was leaving because she was in an argument with the defendant who was demanding to know where she was going. And at that point, when she tried to leave is when he put her on the ground, put his knee on her back and snatched her phone. She tried to come back into the house. She left, came back into the house to grab her purse and her keys. And apparently when she went back inside the house, the defendant was holding her phone and a knife. She asked for her phone again. The defendant refused. And finally, she left the residence, found a tenant who was getting off the elevator and was able to call the police through that tenant. The defendant, when the police arrived, was no longer present. So we do have some concerns based on the additional facts that we received from the police report that give us some concerns about the level of violence that was employed in this case. That coupled with that 2019 aggravated assault strangulation for which he currently is on probation gives us additional concerns, as well as the fact that he has a probation violation from just recently, the last couple of months in 2022, which also give us concerns that he is not going to be a good risk he may be a risk of reoffense. So for those reasons, the state is requesting that $5,000 surety bond. We are further requesting stay away from Ms. Shateria, that is Shateria, Pauley, Pauley, stay away from 144 Moreland Avenue, apartment 430, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Whitfield?
Yes, Your Honor, we are requesting as low a bond as possible from Mr. Payton. He no more than maybe $1,000 surety bond. Mr. Payton is 31 years old. He has lived in Atlanta for about last 20 years, pretty much since he was a child. He currently lives with his wife, and he has a son from another relationship, but not with Miss Polly. He and Miss Polly are no longer together. In fact, this alleged incident date of almost 2 years ago now was the last time they had any contact with each other. They'd have no reason to contact each other going forward. He was completely unaware of the warrant until his probation violation that came up in Cobb. So he is a military veteran. He was discharged in 2016. He has his bachelor's degree in biology. He is trying to get into the master's program at Georgia State. He is currently on leave, but taking an extended leave of absence from his job to provide care for his sister, who had to be, as I understand, relocated to the United States after a health issue. He is normally employed as a molecular scientist, and he conducts blood and urinalysis research and COVID research and other things. But yes, Your Honor, we're asking for no more than $1,000 good bond. He has not been arrested on anything violent since this alleged incident. He, again, was not aware of the warrant, has not contacted or has any reason to contact Miss Polly. We don't oppose a no contact provision. We don't oppose a stay away. He does not live at that address anymore. And from what I understand, neither does Miss Polly.
On the simple battery is 1,500. The theft by taking is 1,000. Total bond is 2,500. It is a surety bond. Reset date is November 10th. Mr. Payton, if you do not make bond, we will see you on November 10th at 9 a.m. If you do make bond, then we will send you a notice for your next court date, which will not be November 10th. In the meantime, the conditions of your bond is no further contact with Shateria Polly, to stay away from 144 Moreland Avenue, the entire building in Atlanta, Georgia. No illegal drugs, no weapons, no firearms, and no alcohol. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Position 11, Mr. Pitts.
Kevin Bernard Pitts is accused of discharge of firearm on or near a public highway, a street, and reckless conduct from September 14th, 2022. In accusation number 22 CR 007380B. Mr. Pitts, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Whitfield. Mr. Tucson, any trials?
No.
Ms. Falk, any recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. The state's recommendation is a $10,000 surety bond. That would be $5,000 for each count. No alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and the defendant must surrender any firearms that he has to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. The defendant is 19 years of age, which gives the state some concerns, given that in this case, he essentially, it seems to be kind of a road rage incident where the defendant was run off the road by somebody who was cutting in front of him, jumped out of his vehicle and began shooting across the street at the vehicle that cut him off. There were two video surveillance captures that the officers used. One was from the BP at 2139 Main Street that showed the actual near accident and the defendant jumping out and then firing a handgun. And then there was MARTA video surveillance that also showed that there was 5 shots at the time. The defendant claimed that he was shooting because he believed somebody was shooting at him, but the MARTA bus surveillance captured that there were 5 gunshots that could be heard, and officers located 5 .45 caliber shell casings which they believe belonged to the defendant, who possessed a .45 caliber handgun. So that does kind of diminish the argument regarding possible self-defense. And the state is really concerned. Granted, the defendant has no history, but we're also taking into account he's 19 years of age, and this is a situation at 9 o'clock at night on Main Street, Knotts Avenue in East Point, that he could have seriously hurt or killed someone. For that reason, that is our recommendation.
Ms. Whitfield?
Yes, Your Honor. We are asking for no more than $1,000 surety bond per charge. Your Honor, he has no criminal history. He is 19 years old. I've spoken to Mr. Pitts today, and he has indicated that he was apparently told by the officers that they were going to release the warrant on him. They were going to lift that. I'm not sure exactly what was going on with that, but he actually went back he has already surrendered his firearm to the East Point Police. They should be in possession of that. And he was actually told he could come back and get it. And that's when he was arrested on this. Since the alleged incident date was back in September, Your Honor. He's been living in Atlanta for the past few years. However, his parents live in Augusta, Georgia. So he does have other friends and other family here in Atlanta, but he does intend to live with them. And I've let him know that he needs to update any address, even if it is in Augusta, with the court, and his parents would ensure that he gets to court, Your Honor. He has he's gone to the 12th grade, but he's not graduated school. He has plans to return, and he has been working at Waffle House in various locations in the past, for the past few years, Your Honor. So at this point, like I said, given his age and lack of criminal history, I apologize, Your Honor. we are asking for no more than $1,000 per charge.
On the discharge of a firearm on or near a public highway or street, this was not a solitary, alleged and solitary discharge. This was a multiple rapid fire of, based on what I've read on the warrant. The bond is going to be set $5,000, and that's a surety bond. On the reckless conduct, which covers essentially the same alleged conduct, that's going to be a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial services. I will need a parent to co-sign the bond. So he plans to live in Augusta, Georgia, or I'm assuming he's been living in Atlanta for some particular reason?
Yes, he's been working here, Your Honor, but he does intend to, it's my understanding that his parents are actually on the way right now to come pick him up from the jail. But it's my understanding that, yes, he is making some changes and will be staying with them for some time.
All right. He needs to report to pretrial the first time in person. And then after that, I will allow for telephonic reporting as long as he resides in Augusta, Georgia. If he moves to Atlanta, then he needs to update us for the change of address and resume his reporting in person. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. Pretrial services has the authority to have him report in person if they want to conduct a random screen of alcohol and or drugs that can be performed within 48 hours of them calling him. So he shouldn't be surprised if they call him on a Sunday to come down to Atlanta on a Monday to take a random screen for drugs and or illegal drugs. He's not to possess any weapons, no firearms, no handguns, no rifles, anything that shoots, even a BB gun. He's not to possess them, and he cannot live in any home that has such weapons, and he cannot be in any vehicle that has such weapons. So if his parents own any firearms, they have to have them removed from the property. And he cannot be under the same room with such weapons. He cannot be in any vehicle. Whatever vehicle he occupies, he has to make sure that he is, that there are no weapons in there. Mr. Pitts, you're going to be subject to a curfew. You, in addition to your parents co-signing this $5,000 signature bond, you are subject to a curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So hopefully after 6 a.m. you are either in school or being a good citizen and employed, but you need to return home by 6 p.m. If your job requires you to be beyond the curfew, you need a court order to amend those curfew conditions. Your next court date is November 10th. And if your parents bond you out, then you need to make sure that you maintain a current address with us, because we will send you notice of when to come back to court. This may be your first arrest, young man, but pardon the pun, you just began with a big bang. And welcome to the big boy world. Congratulations. Next case.
Hold on. Two things.
Yes, Tucson?
That's per judge, number one. And who's co-signing?
Oh, yeah. Ms. Whitfield, who do you believe would be his co-signer? Mom or dad?
The mother is
Oh, there we are. Mother is apparently already at the jail.
All right, so it would be co-signer would be his biological mother or stepmother? What are we talking about?
Yeah, can we get a name?
the father will be signing him out.
Okay, Mr. Pitts, what's your father's name?
Kevin Pitts.
Kevin Pitts, is there a senior or
Yes, ma'am.
is this Kevin Pitts Senior? No, what's his middle name?
Bernard.
Same like yours?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and what's his date of birth?
You don't know a dad's birthday.
April 9th, 1977. April 9th, 1977. I'm nervous. That's the only reason I don't know that.
I'm assuming you waiving the bill since they already in the jail, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to waive the utility bills. All right, Mr. Pitts, who co-signs your bond, we would need to show identification card with that legal name and that date of birth. And while you are contemplating the consequences of this alleged action, you might want to start memorizing your parents' birth dates, anniversary date, and all their special dates so you can show how much you appreciate them. Thank you.
Your Honor,
Francois, oh, go ahead. You can go.
thank you, Mr. Howard. Just to make sure I'm correct, just on the bond, 5,000 on the discharge as a surety, 5,000 pretrial services, signature on the reckless.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
and random screens anytime at
Oh, yeah,
pretrial services discretion.
got it. I had all the other conditions. I just wasn't sure about the amount.
And yeah, they would need to go to the pretrial trailer to co-sign.
Yeah.
But they still have to
to
bond them out too.
Story if
Yeah.
somebody had been struck by a bullet. Okay, thank you. Next case.
What was the total amount? So the
10,000 split bond, 5 on the discharge, 5 surety on the discharge, 5 signature bond on the reckless. Parental cosigner.
Your Honor, if I could just real quick have permission to step up, I need to interview Ricky Williams. He's the last person on the calendar. He was unavailable to be interviewed.
Is anyone else? Oh, Miss Wanda again? Okay, let me see who's the next defendant and then we will do that.
And just to let Ms. Whitfield know, I know that Mr. Williams is scheduled for an MHET. So just
Okay.
for her personal knowledge, there was a case yesterday with Mr. Williams as well.
Someone's already been, okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Francois, whenever courtroom 2 is ready.
Yes, positions 1 and 2, Mr. Brown.
All right, that's Miss Wanda Gant's case.
Yes, I'm doing all of Gant's cases right now.
All right. All right, Miss Whitfield, go ahead and call the jail or wherever you need to call to speak to Mr. Williams, okay? All right. This is Ronnie Brown case, and he has 2 cases with us. 22 CR 007370E. Mr. Brown, in that particular case, you're accused of theft by shoplifting, willful obstruction of an officer, and possession and use of drug-related object from October 26, 2022. And then in the second case, we have 22 CR 007371E. State versus Ronnie Brown, and if you will please be patient, I need to read you the charge and the date of incident. Theft by shoplifting, October 9th, 2022. Theft by shoplifting, October 20th, 2022. Theft by shoplifting, October 14th, 2022. Theft by shoplifting, October 19th, 2022. And the 5th count of theft by shoplifting, October 16th, 2022. Mr. Brown, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Ms. Gant. Mr. Tucson, I just need a history of convictions only, if any.
Convictions, let's see. Well, he's on probation for shoplifting and trespass out of state court. 22 CR 006454E. But he got an open, it appears to be an open case out of Louisiana for domestic abuse, battery, simple criminal damage to property, violation of protection order. And another ag assault type case out of Louisiana.
Okay, I have a
I
New
see
Orleans, I have a New Orleans address, but just the city,
about right.
that's it.
Yeah, one of his cycles says armed robbery with a firearm. I guess he was sentenced to 10 years for that in 2009.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Ms. Folk, what is let's start with position. Well, let me ask the first question. Is there a particular reason why the state didn't just divide that into 5 separate cases where they have separate incident dates?
Your Honor, mainly it's because all of the incidents on this second case involved the same location.
Okay.
Within days of each other. So honestly, we were looking at potentially aggregating it and sending it to the DA's office, but it didn't meet the value threshold.
Okay. All right. tell me, what's your bond recommendation for position number 1?
So for position number 1, which is the smaller of the 2 cases, I believe, our recommendation on the theft by shoplifting is a $1,000 surety bond. On the hindering an officer is a $500 surety bond. This was the incident that happened yesterday over at the Texaco, where the defendant stole a 12-pack of beer and then fled from the officers when they tried to have him stop. We are also asking for a stay away from the Texaco located at 3 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard, Northwest in Atlanta. No alcohol, drugs, or weapons in that as the other conditions to that. Now, the second case, which is the lengthier case, it is 5 counts of theft by shoplifting. The state is asking for a $500 surety bond on each count of theft by shoplifting for a total of $2,500 surety bond. We are also asking for for a stay away from the mobile gas station that is located at
575
575
Chappelle Road.
Chappelle Road, Northwest Atlanta.
Got it.
And again, this just involves the defendant repeatedly going to that location and stealing beer. As pretrial has already mentioned, the defendant is currently on probation. And I believe that is, and I'm sure pretrial will let me know if I'm incorrect. I believe that's also for theft by shoplifting. Is that correct, pretrial?
I believe it was,
And I may be incorrect.
My bad, I wondered. What was your question?
The current
20
case the defendant is on probation on.
This file. Hold on.
I thought it was theft by shoplifting in 22 CR 006454E.
That's shoplifting and trespass.
Okay, I thought so. So that is why the state is requesting a surety bond in this case, because he's currently on probation for pretty much the exact same thing and is continuing to go and shoplift alcohol from these locations. That is all.
Ms. Gant?
Thank you, Honor. Mr. Ronnie Brown is 30 years old. He has been in the Atlanta, Georgia area for 5 months. He is residentially challenged. However, he does have a mailing address that is local. I did place that in the chat. Your Honor, Mr. Brown completed 9th grade. He is unemployed. And up until a few days ago, he did not have a birth certificate nor social security card. He's just waiting on his ID. That is the reason. These are reasons why he has been unemployed, Your Honor. He is presumed innocent. I do acknowledge his history. However, given his indigency, he does not have the means to pay anything toward bond. Therefore, I am requesting a signature bond or the lowest bond possible. And we are unopposed to the stay away conditions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. On position number 1, the total bond is going to be 2,000. It's 1,000 on the theft by shoplifting, 500 on count 2, 500 on count 3. Reset date is November 10th. Stay away from the Texaco gas station at 3 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard in Atlanta, Georgia. No alcohol, drugs, and weapons. Position number 2, the total bond is going to be set at 2,500. It is a surety bond. Reset date is November 10th. And to stay away from the mobile gas station at 575 Chappelle Road, Northwest Atlanta, and no illegal drugs, alcohol, and weapons. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're done. No, you got a good bond. You gotta pay 10%. Position 4, Coleman.
This is Charles Coleman, accused of stalking and criminal trespass from October 26, 2022. Mr. Coleman, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Wanda Gant. Mr. Tucson, any priors?
48 total. Last arrest was in June, failure to appear. He's out on pretrial, 22 SC 184-439. Ag assault, battery, carrying a concealed weapon, trespass, obstruction, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felon, discharging firearm on or near public highway. And so he'll be sitting on that one because that don't have no bond.
Oh, the 22 SC pretrial bond has been revoked, or was it a UJR?
It was a UJR. I'm about to revoke it. It's going to be revoked.
No, but there was no monetary amount. So if the UJR has
No.
been revoked, then it's no bond status.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Your Honor, I do have something to say just to put Mr. Howard out of his misery. We have submitted an order to the court on that case through Ms. Bridgewater, and I also just sent it to Ms. Grace for Your Honor's signature. The case has been accepted by the DA's office. That 22 SC case also involved aggravated stalking against the same victim.
For this case?
Yes.
All right, so this case has now been, it's already been accepted and it's just pending a transfer order.
It has, Your Honor, and we submitted the transfer order, and unfortunately, we submitted it a little bit late, so we submitted about 10 minutes before court, but it has been submitted to Ms. Grace and Ms. Bridgewater.
And we're talking
For Your
about
Honor's signature.
Karen, we're talking about Carmen Belcher?
Same victim. I looked up the case, that 22 SC case has, and I can go into the greater
No,
detail.
I don't know. No, we don't need to go into that. That's all I needed to know. I just wanted to verify that. I was just looking it up. I just wanted to verify that he had no further contact with Carmen Belcher.
He did, Your Honor. He was given a bond originally was given on November 2020 and then was reinstated on July 2nd, 2022 with an order to stay 200 yards away from 396 Brownlee Road, complete an FBIP curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. and live with his brother, as well as to stay away from Miss Belcher. So there.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are.
Ms. Gant, I think the only thing we have to address is any response you have to the order transferring the case to the Superior Court for one count of aggravated stalking, which has just been signed and to be filed with the court.
Of course, Your Honor, we are opposed. My client states that he did not, I know this isn't about guilt or innocence, but he denies having any intent, nor did he stalk the complaining witness, Ms. Belcher. He states that to get to his residence at 3014 Middleton Road, he actually has to pass her residence, and that was his purpose for being there. We are opposed, but however, we will defer to the court's ruling.
All right. Give me some idea. So he had to drive by, he had to walk by. What are we talking about?
No, he states that he did not have any money to, I guess, get dropped off at his brother's house. So he states that he had to pass MLK to go over to Belmont. And then, of course, I guess Belmont passes by this incident location 396 Brownlee Road. So he states that he had to walk past there. He tried to walk by as quickly as he could. He did not have any intent whatsoever to stalk her, Your Honor. And that's the extent of it.
So October 26, 2022, sworn report by Officer Lancelot with Atlanta PD. Ms. Carmen Belcher stated that Mr. Belcher arrived at her apartment.
Well, he offers a different version. He offers a
Okay,
complete.
so one is arrived at the apartment, has been sleeping on her doorstep, banging on her door, as opposed to simply traversing that area in order to get from point A to point C by going through point B.
He denies the allegations, and at this point, he's presumed innocent, Your Honor.
After walking towards him, the officer detained Mr. Coleman hiding under the apartment building in a utility closet. Okay. Mr. Belcher, I'm sure you and your attorney will be able to present your defenses when the appropriate time is. I'm sorry, Mr. Coleman. Unfortunately, at the present time, you are accused of a felony charge of aggravated stalking, which by law carries no bond. And the matter is going to be sent to the district attorney's office. So you will have your initial appearance before at the felony first appearance court. Thank you. And of course, you cannot communicate or contact Ms. Belcher from the jail, which will just compound the situation. Thank you.
And if I may, I just have a question regarding the criminal trespass matter. What Ms. Falk Is that also transferred, or is that a separate matter still?
Yes, Ms. Gant, the entirety of the case is being transferred to the
Okay.
DA's office. They have accepted the case in its entirety.
Thank you.
Next case, please, Francois, whenever you're ready.
Judge Law, so he has no bond?
He has no bond. It's aggravated stalking. By statute, no bond can be set until his preliminary hearing.
So you go back to court tomorrow, okay? Position 6, Martin, come on, Mr. Martin. Yes. You could upgrade it. You can transfer it.
Repeat your name, please.
Position 6, Mr. Martin.
Martin. Well, actually, I was hoping you would say his name, so I won't mispronounce it. Kentavian, is that correct? Kentavian Martin?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Martin, your case number is 22 CR 007-375F. You're accused of battery, domestic violence from October 26, 2022. Mr. Martin, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Wanda Gant. Mr. Tucson, any priors with Mr. Martin?
This is 10th arrest. Last was December 2021. Simple battery, possession of marijuana with intent, ag assault, battery DV, possession of MDMA. That's open, 22 SC 184-783. Appears to have an open case in Clayton. Battery provoked, simple battery, family violence, death by taking. 2019 probation violation, terrorist threats is the underlying charge. 2021 misdemeanor obstruction. 2018 probation. He was convicted for the terrorist threats, obstruction, and marijuana in 2017.
And was that in Fulton or Clayton?
Clayton.
Clayton, okay.
His first 2 cycles were juvie, so I think he got a total of 8 actually.
All right, we'll just
8
stay with
adult.
the adult matters.
Yeah, 8 adult.
All right, thank you. Ms. Falk?
Yes, Your Honor. So this involves Miss, and let me just, Capri, that is Kapri, Jackson Rogers, Jackson common spelling Rogers, Rodgers, who was in her room at 4555 Washington Road in Atlanta, Georgia on yesterday at 11:35 a.m. when the defendant came in, knocked her laptop to the floor, bit her on the shoulder, placed an arm around her neck. Miss Jackson Rogers stated she grabbed a knife for self-defense, and the officers were able to observe bite marks on Miss Jackson Rogers' shoulders and minor scratches to her face. So the defendant currently has this case, as well as an open case in the DA's office under 22 SC 184-783 for aggravated assault, strangulation, and family violence battery involving Miss Jackson Rogers. In that case, he was alleged to have pointed a gun at her, told her he'd blow her head off, and then strangled her, causing bruising to the neck. In that case, he was given a $21,000 surety bond by Judge Manning on January 2nd, 2022, with the following conditions: that he stay away from Miss Jackson Rogers, stay away from 4555 Washington Road, and he was also told to stay away from the whole of Fulton County, which is kind of a new one for me. I haven't seen that, but he was told to stay away from the entirety of the county.
Oh, you got the Manning special. Okay.
He then had a case with our office, 22 CR 00003F, which was signed by Your Honor on January 2nd, 2022 for simple battery against Capri Jackson Rogers, our same victim, with the provisions that he have no further contact with her and stay away from, again, 4555 Washington Road. You also ordered him to complete 4 weeks of anger management within 6 months. That case was then transferred to the DA's office by their request to accompany the aggravated assault case that was already up there. I have emailed the DA's office to see if they would like to handle this case as well. I have not received a response, which is why Your Honor is not receiving an order at this time. But I have reached out to them in regards to it. The state's main concern here is, even if we ignore literally everything else about this case and argue that he is innocent until proven guilty, which I know the defense is definitely going to say, the fact remains that he's already violated the bond conditions just by being in Fulton County, which is where he was arrested, at 4455 Washington Road, which is another violation of his existing bond conditions, which tell him to stay away from that address and to stay away from Ms. Jackson Rogers. So already we've had a violation of those two bond conditions that have been set for him. And he's essentially already was on bond on a $25,000 surety bond, both cases involving Ms. Jackson Rogers when this offense was committed. Not only that, but we're also looking at the terroristic threats and acts conviction from Clayton County, which was actually downgraded from an aggravated assault as part of the package of charges that he pled to for the misdemeanor terroristic threats in 2017 and his probation violation. We just have concerns that the defendant is not at all taking this seriously, not at all willing to comply with the conditions, is a high risk of reoffense, and is quite frankly a serious danger to Ms. Jackson Rogers. For those reasons, we are asking for a $10,000 cash bond, stay away from Capri Jackson Rogers, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and stay away from 4555 Washington Road. Thank you.
Ms. Gant?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Contavious Martin is 25 years old. He has been in the Atlanta, Georgia area his entire life. He does have a 3-year-old daughter. He also has family here, Your Honor. He has a mother and a stepfather. He completed the 11th grade. He went on to obtain a GED. He just found a full-time job about a week ago, Your Honor. He's on probation, and of course, he is at risk of losing that job if he isn't released. I do acknowledge my client's history, however, Your Honor, he is presumed innocent in this and any open case. He denies the allegations. He does not have any way to pay a $10,000 cash bond. Therefore, I'm requesting a signature bond on Mr. Martin's behalf. And if Your Honor determines that he is ineligible, then I would ask for a bond of no more than $2,000 surety. Thank you. And we are unopposed to any stay away conditions and any no contact orders.
So if I'm just understanding this correctly, he's got a open felony case, bond set by Judge Manning, involving the same victim, same location. Then there was a simple battery case in which involved the same victim, same location. That was subsequently consolidated to the felony case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And now we've got a third open case involving the same alleged victim, same location, but pending acceptance by the district attorney's office.
Yes, we did reach out to the DV unit to see if they would accept that case. We just have not heard back.
Okay. And I do have warrants for all these 3 cases. So, Mr. Martin, your bond is going to be set at $7,500. It's going to be a cash bond only. You are also going to be equipped with an ankle monitor. And if you do make bond, you would need to be equipped with an ankle monitor and be responsible for your ankle monitoring fees, which is about between $290 to $320 a month. And that would be payment that you must make. If you fail to make your payments in 3 subsequent months, your bond will be revoked and you'll be in a 0 bond status. Please understand this, all right? If you did not understand it before, I cannot put it in simpler English. You are to have no further contact with Ms. Jackson Rogers, Capri Jackson Rogers. You have to stay 200 yards away from her, which is a distance of 2 football fields. You cannot communicate with her in person, through a phone, including the one from the jail, through a computer or any kind of electronic device, through a third party, or even discuss her on social media. You're not to possess any weapons, no guns. You're not to consume any alcohol and not consume any illegal drugs, which also includes marijuana in the state of Georgia. Yes, sir?
Your Honor, may I say something?
Oh, Mr. Martin, please do not speak. I do not want you to say anything to jeopardize your case. I'm happy to call you to discuss conditions the judge has ruled. And Judge Law, if I may just make one request, please. I do not believe that he will be able to afford the ankle monitoring, Your Honor, given the cash bond, I would ask that if there is any way that the state may fund that, or
Nope, there is no option right now. We did have the options during the pandemic, but those options have dried up, so to speak.
thank you, Your Honor.
I was just gonna say, I don't think I'm getting.
Mr. Martin, please remain silent. I'm happy to give you a call, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Hold in
Mr.
court hearing.
Mr. Martin, I think that's very good advice by your attorney, because by virtue of this case, this case that we have right now, the district attorney's office has the right to formally accuse you with one count of aggravated stalking, which, as you observed from the case just prior to yours, that carries no bond. Aggravated stalking is violation of a no further contact as issued by a court order. Your prior bond orders required you to have no further contact with Capri Jackson Rogers. So I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel for some time until you resolve these cases. So highly recommend that you exercise your right to remain silent and listen very carefully to your attorneys from now on. Thank you.
And courtroom 2, if you may hold him, I will give him a call once my cases are completed.
Position 7, Melton.
Kendrick Dwayne Melton Jr. is accused of theft by shoplifting and criminal trespass from October 23rd, 2022. Mr. Melton, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and your counsel is going to be Ms. Whitfield.
Actually, it's Wanda Gant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Okay, Ms. Gant, your attorney is going to be Ms. Gant. Any priors, Mr.
This is ninth arrest. I got the arrest. The charges confused. So he was just arrested on the 17th of this month.
Yes. Was there a signature bond through pretrial?
It was through the jail by Judge Morrow. Stay away from the racetrack. That was on the 17th out of Hateville. It was same charges, trespass and shoplifting.
Yeah. Did he have a signature bond through pretrial from the December 2020 arrest? Possession of cocaine and so forth? I just want to make sure he doesn't have a pretrial bond.
I don't think so. I can look it up, but I don't recall.
All right, thank you. Ms. Falk?
Yes, Your Honor. As you have already heard, this defendant was rearrested at this location for stealing beer from the racetrack. Appears to be very popular right now, the stealing of beer at 1180 Virginia Avenue. And he had been previously given a criminal trespass warning on September 28th of 2022. As for his previous case that, let me see, there were actually two, let me just make sure I'm correct about this. I am seeing a criminal trespass theft by shoplifting under 22 CR 007061A and 00735A. So he actually has two previous cases for theft by shoplifting and for criminal trespass that are currently open. He received a $2,000 total SOB through the jail on October 18th on the 35A case, and on the 61A case, it looks like he received, Your Honor will just give me a moment. And I'm not seeing the bond on that case. And on that other case that Your Honor was asking about, the loitering in possession case, that is a 20 CP 196042 case, which is also open currently. It doesn't appear to have been accused yet. And on that, he received a $3,000 SOB through the jail bond. So far, at least that I can account for, he's got $5,000 of signature bonds through the jail. The state is asking for a $2,500 surety bond on this case. We're asking for $2,000 on the theft by shoplifting, $500 on the criminal trespass, stay away from the racetrack. And if your honor is to grant that surety bond, we're asking that the other two CR cases be placed on the SAP calendar so that he can deal with all of his cases together. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gant?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Kendrick Melton is 65 years old. He has been in the Atlanta, Georgia area for 30 years. He does have family here, but he states that there is no one to help bond him out of jail. He doesn't have the means, Your Honor. He states that his family is experiencing financial hardship at this time. Mr. Melton graduated high school. He also has an associate's in business. He is retired. He was working as a truck driver for 30 years. He denies the allegations, and while I do acknowledge Mr. Melton's history, he is presumed innocent in this and any open cases. He strongly denies the allegations. Therefore, Your Honor, I am requesting a signature bond or the lowest bond possible, as any bond he will not be able to meet, and we are unopposed to any stay away conditions. Thank you, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, just to clarify, although there are two CR cases, it actually looks like it may have been a duplicate case. So we will need to address that.
Let me see the duplicate. So the 00, yeah, it's duplicate to one of the felony cases.
Right. And so we are
706.
Yeah,
706-1A.
we will need to address that. Additionally, he is currently on a surety bond in the amount on this case in the amount of, I think it was $2,360. So that is his current bond.
All right. So what do you want to address with regards to that duplicate case? It's 22 CR 007-0618. Incident date is October 17, 2022. It's with Judge Roth. It's an open case. That's from October 17, 2022.
Right.
I don't know whether y'all had already gone ahead and had that case transferred to Superior Court, but it is accused with Superior Court as 22 CP 213275, October 17, 2022. If y'all want to do the research and then just null cross the duplicate case in state court.
That is what the state is going to have to do. So I'm going to need to look at both of the cases and then decide which one we're going to null cross, compare it to the jail records, and decide which one to get rid of.
Understood. Presently on the theft by shoplifting is going to be 1,500. On the criminal trespass is 1,000. Total bond is set at 2,500. It is a surety bond. Stay away from the racetrack at 1180 Virginia Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. We are going to address this case, presently the new one, as well as 22 CR 007-0618 and 22 CR 007-035A, all three cases at the next court date of November 10, subject to the state disposing of one or more of these cases. Thank you.
Oh, and Your Honor, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons.
Oh, yes, no illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and no firearms. Thank you.
Position 13, take.
I'm getting mollywop today.
Anthony Tate, is that you, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're accused of willful obstruction of an officer from October 26, 2022. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Whitfield.
Yes.
Mr. Tucson, any priors, please?
Yes. 2021 out of Douglasville for criminal trespass and obstruction. The obstruction was dismissed. 2017 out of Illinois for obstructing justice. Tennessee, 2011 theft of property conviction, 2012 theft of property criminal trespass, possession of a switchblade knife or knuckles, conviction. A disorderly conduct with that arrest was dismissed. Theft of property conviction. 2013 domestic assault bodily harm conviction. 2014 probation violation. 2016 theft of property. 2017 theft of property. That's it. Oh, you got a
Does he have the
hold that up.
hold in
Yeah.
Douglasville? Is there a,
It's an FTA warrant,
okay,
trespass.
thank you. Ms. Falk?
Yes, Your Honor. State's recommendation is a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial services that he be released to the hold only. And we are going to ask for no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. This was an incident from yesterday where he was in a motor vehicle accident, and when asked to provide his ID, he did, and it returned back with that arrest warrant from Douglasville, at which point the defendant attempted to run from the officer, apparently could not keep his balance, fell to the ground, and the officer then apprehended him. And so the state is fine with releasing him to that FTA hold.
Bond set at $3,000 signature bond through the jail, released to the failure to appear warrant hold in Douglasville. Mr. Tate, once you resolve the hold in Douglasville, please be mindful that you're not to operate a motor vehicle unless you have a valid driver's license attached to your person while you're operating the car. The vehicle must have adequate insurance and proper registration. And you are to stay away from the McDonald's at 526 Ponce de Leon Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you.
Judge, I believe he might work at that McDonald's.
The information on the warrant did appear that he was employed there. So the
Yes.
state wouldn't request to stay away from that address because the address, it doesn't appear to have very much to do at all with the incident.
All right. I'll allow him to return to that McDonald's as long as he's still employed there.
Thank you.
That's great, Mr. Tate, but the minute you violate any of these conditions, or if you get arrested again, all signature bonds are wiped off.
You won't have to worry about me never again.
Yes, famous last words. This is being recorded. I'll remind you of that if you come back. Thank you.
Position 8, Morales.
I'm sorry, just 1 second, please. There we go. Hector Morales, Mr. Morales, my name is Judge Law. Do you speak and understand English? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Your case number is 22 CR 007376F, accused of battery, family violence from October 26, 2022. Mr. Morales, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Whitfield. Mr. Tucson, any priors, please?
Only thing I see is a 2016 U.S. Army wrongful distribution of a controlled substance. He got extra duty, reduction in grade, reprimand. That's all I got.
Okay. Ms. Falk, do you want to add to that, or are you
No,
satisfied?
Your Honor, that's all the state has as well.
All right. What's the recommendation, please?
So, Your Honor, the recommendation on this case is going to be a $5,000 surety bond. Stay away from 2265 Marietta Boulevard, Northwest Atlanta. No further contact with Will Marie, that is WILMARIE, Fernandez, FERNANDEZ, Velez, VELEZ. We are also asking for a one-time law enforcement escort to retrieve belongings, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. Any firearms belonging to the defendant must be turned over to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. This incident happened at 2265 Marietta Boulevard Northwest yesterday at 11:40 a.m. And it was actually called in by a neighbor who heard Miss Fernandez Velez screaming for help from a balcony. When the officers made contact with Miss Fernandez Velez, she stated that she and her boyfriend were in an argument, and he dragged a laptop away from her when she tried to get away from him and go into the bathroom. That resulted in a bruise on her leg that the officers were able to observe. He then pinned her down, placed a kitchen towel in her mouth, and turned up the Alexa to cover her screams. At one point, Miss Fernandez Velez stated he pushed her into the shower, and she lost a nail during the scuffle. She did admit that she went out to the balcony and yelled for help. So the officers had an opportunity to see her with, wet, missing a nail, bruising on her. We have had a chance to speak with Miss Fernandez Velez, and she states that she and the defendant are in a relationship. They live together and they don't have any children. She stated that he gagged her with a kitchen towel for what felt like an hour, although it was probably more like 10 minutes. She said he continued to shove the towel down her throat and then kept taking it out and shoving it back in again. She wasn't able to count how many times that happened. She says she now has scratches in her mouth from the towel because it was so rough, and she now has trouble swallowing and it hurts to swallow. She did state she was having a hard time breathing while the defendant was gagging her, and he placed a robe over her face to muffle her screaming. She stated that the most fearful part was when he had the Alexa, he told the Alexa to turn on loud music so nobody could hear her scream. And she stated at that point she knew he wasn't going to stop. She further stated that when the police got to the door, he told her she better be quiet and not talk. And while they were in the closet, he pulled out a flute and stated, "This is metal. This will be wonderful to bend on your face." She further stated that they had had an altercation last month where he had thrown her to the ground and taken her phone. And at that point, in the prior altercation, the 7-year-old had to intervene. And she says she feels like the violence is escalating. She is in fear of the defendant. She also has stated that the defendant has 2 guns in the house, which is why the state has made that special request for all firearms to be turned over to Fulton County Sheriff's Office. She does want a no contact and a stay away. She is here on Zoom today, but she is asked not be heard at this time and wish to have me put the statement on the record through our victim advocate, the conversation she had with them. Although this is only the defendant's second offense, this was a pretty serious and egregious act. The fact that a neighbor had to become involved because she's screaming out on a balcony for help and had to get her assistance kind of tells the court how serious this situation has gotten evolved to and could have been, as well as the Miss Fernandez Velez's statements regarding previous incidents involving this defendant. We are concerned for this escalating pattern of violence, that there is a high risk of reoffense, and that is why we are asking for that $5,000 surety bond. Thank you.
Ms. Whitfield?
This is my case.
Ms. Gant, I'm sorry.
Mr. Hector Morales is 30 years old. He has been in the Atlanta, Georgia area for 4 years. He does not have any family here. He is currently in chiropractic college. He is an intern at a local chiropractic office. He has been in that position for 5 months. He does not have the means to pay much of anything toward bond. He strongly denies the allegations. He wants to continue having contact. However, we will defer to the court's ruling. I am requesting a signature bond on Mr. Morales' behalf. This is his first arrest for any violence, and of course he is presumed innocent, Your Honor. We again request the signature bond. We are opposed to the stay away and the no contact orders, and if Your Honor orders the no contact and the stay away, again, he will need a one-time law enforcement escort. Thank you.
Ms. Gant, I don't see an address. I have a Texas driver's license. I don't have any indication other than
he informs me that he in fact resides at the incident location 2265 Marietta Boulevard with complaining witness.
And does he have a Georgia driver's license, which he was supposed to have converted 4 years ago?
That I am not sure. Mr. Morales, do you have a current Georgia driver's license?
No, ma'am.
You stated no, Your Honor.
So I don't have an address on file. I only have a Texas driver's license. I don't have anything to indicate that he has ties other than with the incident location. Bond is set at $5,000. It is a surety bond. Next court date is November 10th. To have no further contact with Vilma Marie Fernandez. You're not to communicate with her in person, through a phone, through any kind of electronic device, through a third party, or even on social media. You are to stay away from 2265 Marietta Boulevard in Northwest Atlanta. If you have any personal property at that location, Ms. Fernandez can pack those up and surrender them to a third party. Ms. Falk, can the alleged victim identify a third party to whom she can surrender his property?
Yes, let me ask our victim advocate if Ms. Fernandez Velez can identify a third party to
All
give
right.
those items to.
Mr. Morales is not to own or possess any weapons or any firearms. If there are any in the apartment with which he used to share with Ms. Fernandez, those must be surrendered to the authorities. If Mr. Morales owns any other firearms in any other location, he has to surrender them to the authorities. His next court date is November 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Holohan, he's an add-on, position 1.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Rebecca Kozicki, and I'm an attorney for Mr. Holohan.
I'm so sorry we put you off to the last, but not the least. So
Thank you so much, Your Honor. If I could explain in front of my client there, I've been hired by the family, so he doesn't know. He got arrested yesterday, and I'm here on his behalf, and his mother's here to get all the particulars because we'll be asking for a bond. So I'll let the state go.
understood. Mr. Griffin Holohan is 22 CR 007385D. This is from an incident of October 26, 2022. Mr. Holohan, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Rebecca Kuziski. With regards to this particular case, the charges that have been accused are DUI, driving under the influence of alcohol less safe, possession of an open alcohol container, and following too closely. Ms. Holohan, Ms. Koziski, did you get the accusation number?
I did not, Your Honor. If you could repeat it, I'll write it down.
Certainly, 22 CR 007385D, as in Denmark.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right. So with this accusation, I'm be glad to hear his GCIC from Mr. Tucson Howard. Mr. Howard?
Your Honor, since this was an add-on, I will, if Your Honor doesn't mind, I can give the history. I don't believe it was communicated to Mr. Tucson that this.
Yeah, Judge, I don't have it. I didn't get
Okay.
the add-on.
All right, Ms. Falk, if you have it.
Yes, I do, Your Honor. So the defendant has no previous history. However, we were able to pull his driving history. He does have the two prior driving history incidents that we're referencing are speeding from 2017 and 2020, for which he pled guilty to both. And so that is the relevant history on this case. This incident happened yesterday at Old Alabama Road in Brumbelow Road.
Yeah.
Thank you. In Johns Creek at around 5:20, which, as you know, is prime time driving hours. The defendant struck the rear of a minivan that was stopped in a turn lane at Old Alabama Road. That minivan then collided with a vehicle in front of it. When the officers made contact, the defendant had bloodshot, watery eyes, odor of alcoholic beverage on his breath, failed the FST and refused implied consent, and a 200 milliliter bottle of Knob Creek old-fashioned cocktail beverage was found in the defendant's vehicle. A person was in fact transported to the hospital as a result of this. So we are investigating this case further for a potential upgrade to serious injury by vehicle, but we will need to get in contact with that individual who was taken to the hospital to find out the nature of the injuries. But needless to say, this was a very serious DUI. Somebody was not only injured, but then taken to the hospital as a result. This happened at around 5:20, which again traffic is well out and thoroughly on the road. And according to the officer who's done accident reconstruction, the defendant didn't even stop. There was no skid marks, no nothing. It was though he just tried to drive right through the car in front of him. And so the state is really concerned about this case, really concerned about the nature of this incident. Although it is his first DUI offense, it is not his first driving offense. The state's recommendation is going to be a $7,500 surety bond. We're going to ask for $7,000 on the DUI, $6,500 on the DUI, $500 on the open container, $500 on the following too closely. We're also going to ask that he have no driving privileges for the time that he is out on this bond, and no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. Thank you.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to state that he is a young man about to start a new job, an internship that he just received to begin on Monday. He is had been a student at the University of South Carolina. I know this young man. He is a really well-respected member of my neighborhood, and his mother, who I said is here, had contacted me. We highly suspect that this was a mistake altogether on the part of the officer seeing what he saw. I don't know anything about the refusal. It's unclear because I don't have any information at this point. But this is not typical behavior of this young man. I would state that 2 speeding tickets in his past from 5 years ago and maybe 2 years ago is not such that we have to be concerned about his driving. He does have a job that he needs to start. And of course, there are rules in place for this kind of thing from the Department of Driver Services. If he indeed did refuse, then that would take place. His license would be suspended, but he would have options to get an ignition interlock. So we would say even before he's accused, to have his driving privileges suspended would be just inappropriate at this time, Your Honor. And as far as the bond is concerned, we would agree to that.
You would agree to the bond?
$6,000. How many?
6,000?
Oh, I apologize. I misunderstood. We would ask for a signature bond on that part.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right. But again, I really, I know this young man so well, and he is certainly not a flight risk or somebody who's not going to appear in court. He is a neighbor. He has a wonderful reputation in our neighborhood. And he is a young man who works very hard at keeping himself employed, educated, and following the rules. If hitting somebody from behind, I know it's one opinion of the officer who absolutely didn't see the event, but is, writing a report based on what he came upon.
Bond is set at $3,500 on the DUI, $500 on the possession of an open alcohol container. That's a $4,000 surety. The following too closely is going to be a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial services. Mr. Holohan will report to pretrial once a month. He will abstain from all alcohol, illegal drugs, and not own any weapons or firearms. He'll be subject to random screens for illegal drugs and alcohol by pretrial services. His driving privileges will be governed by the Department of Driver Services pursuant to the appropriate administrative appeal. His next court date is, so this will be a $6,000 split bond. And his next court date is going to be November 10th. At 9 a.m. in courtroom G33. That court date will remain in place as long as Mr. Holohan does not make bond. If he does make bond, then a new court date will be sent to his current address. Ms. Koziski, we do not have any contact information. I don't know whether it's because he's not completed the intake process, but we have no contact information on our case management system. So we will need his, as a condition of bond, his current mailing address and contact information, including email and cell number.
I will get that to you, Your Honor. How would you like it delivered and where?
If you can email that information to this email address, Holly, like the Christmas plant, Bridgewater, one word, common spelling, at fultoncountyga.gov.
I'll get that right out, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, on Mr. Morales's case, position 8, we did have an opportunity to speak with Ms. Fernandez Velez, and she does not have a third party that she can provide those items to. However, she has stated she can drop those off at the nearest police station.
All right, could you identify the police station?
Let me, just a moment, let me get her address and I will plug it in and see what police station is the nearest to where she is currently
Okay.
residing.
All right, courtroom 2, do we have anyone else to address?
Just a quick announcement. No, we don't, Judge. Position 12 has been transferred to felony. And then, of course, position 14 waived their appearance.
So Shatisha Reese is transferred to the DA's office?
Well, actually, so the state is null processing the 22 CR case.
Okay,
A new warrant was taken out for a felony for the same offense, and then that case went to first appearance today.
okay, understood. Thank you. Anything else, Francois?
That's it. We're completed. Courtroom 2, Judge.
All right, you behave yourself. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, thank you. See you tomorrow, Judge.
Position 14, Ricky, anything going on with Ricky? Ricky Williams?
Your Honor, yes, I waived his appearance. I had a chance to speak with him briefly and just get a little bit of information, just what I could get. I know he was on the calendar yesterday. Yes, and was reset. It sounds like there is an eval pending. Just wanted to waive his presence so that he can have an opportunity to receive bond on this charge as well.
Okay, so Mr. Ricky Williams, position 14, case 22 CR 007382J, has got an additional charge of simple battery from October 22nd, 2022. Ms. Whitfield is his appointed counsel and she has waived his appearance. So let me ask Ms. Falk. Ms. Falk, this is an additional charge. What is the state thinking in terms of bond?
The state is thinking a $3,000 surety bond because this case involved him punching a woman on a MARTA train. And it says family violence. However, when we looked at the case, there is no evidence that these two knew each other. She was already on the train. The train made a stop. He got onto the train, confronted her and punched her. So I have no indication that they knew each other when this event occurred. And I will say, although this happened on the 22nd, the arrest warrant was actually taken out on this case on the 25th. So there's not going to be a Riverside issue on this. And on his previous case, the court did order an MHET.
Okay, and was $2,000 set on his criminal trespass charge?
That is correct, Your Honor. The criminal trespass was a $2,000 surety bond.
All right, Ms. Whitfield, what are you thinking in terms of bond? I see there's quite a few issues in 2022 and late 2021. So I'm somewhat familiar with his recent conviction records.
Yes, you were probably more familiar with it than I am, Your Honor. We'd just be asking that you set a reasonable bond, and in light of that, he's 28 years old. He, I believe, is residentially challenged. He did complete 12th grade. He did graduate high school. He studied some sociology in college, but he indicates he does not have a job. He has never had a job, and that's pretty much all I was able to get from him. He does not remember this incident on MARTA. I'm not sure if he was in a place to do so. So, you know, I understand there's video footage, but yes, this of course just being an allegation at the moment, we just ask for a reasonable bond.
Bond is set at $2,500 is going to be a surety bond. He is to stay away from all MARTA property, not just any particular location, all of them. No further contact with Marlene, that's with 2 E's, Edwards, no illegal drugs, alcohol, and no weapons. And his next court date, was it November 10th yesterday?
Yes.
So we reset to November 10th along with this other charge.
I believe he's already scheduled for SAP on November 8th that I was able to see in the system.
Okay, if it's November 8th, then we will reset this to November 8th as well.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. I think that sets that up. Let me go ahead over the calendar. Position
Your Honor,
one.
one thing before we get started.
Yeah.
We
Mhm.
have identified the police station on
Oh, okay.
the Morales case. That is going to be 2315. Oh, sorry, I'll let Your Honor get a chance to get to the page. 2315 Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30318. It's going to be the Zone 1 precinct.
Zone 1 precinct.
Mhm.
All right. Position 1, Ronnie Brown is a $2,000 surety, November 10th. Same defendant, position 2, 2,500 surety bond, reset November 10th. Position 3 is the 3,000 signature bond through pretrial. Position number 4, and that's for the notice. Position 4, Coleman is transferred to Superior Court, aggravated stalking. Position 5, Foreman is a 3,500 signature bond to pretrial. Further notice, 12-week anger management required. Position 6, Martin is a 7,500 cash bond only. Further notice to November 10th, ankle monitoring required. Position number 7, Melton is a 2,500 surety bond. Further notice to November 10th. Position 8, Morales is a 5,000 surety bond. Further notice to November 10th. Zone 1 precinct location set up for alleged victim to drop off Mr. Morales' personal belongings. Please make sure Ms. Fernandez is on the Zoom. Please make sure that you box his items and you mark it clearly with his name and his date of birth, because I don't have his address. Position 9, Parrish is transferred to the Superior Court of as a felony matter. Position 10, Payton is a 2,500 surety bond, November 10th. Position 11, Pitts is a $10,000 split bond. Further notice to November 10th. Position 12 is Noel Frost as a new felony case that's already been created. Position 13, Tate is a I believe it was a $1,000 signature bond.
I have 3,000.
Really right there. 3,000 signature bond through the jail, released to the Douglasville hold only. Position 14 is a 2,500 surety bond, reset to November 8th. And position 1 on the add-on, Houlihan, is a 6,000 split bond. Further notice to November 10th, pending.
What's the breakdown on that split? Because I got to print out the add-on calendar.
On the add-on, the DUI is 3,500 surety bond. Possession of open alcohol containers 500 surety bond, and the following 2 close to these are 2,000 signature bond through pretrial. All right, folks, thank you very much. That concludes our C calendar for today. Y'all have a great Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. You do the
Bye-bye.
same.